My name is Tyler, and for most of my adult life, I've thought of myself as a simple man. Not in a bad way, just someone who values steadiness over chaos. I work with my hands, I fix what's broken, and I show up when I say I will. I built a life around those principles. And for 8 years, I thought my marriage was built on the same ones. Rachel and I met at a music festival in New Braunfels. She spilled her drink on my boots, and I made some dumb joke about drowning in margarita damage. She laughed. I offered her my flannel because it was cold that night, and that was it. We started dating a week later. A year and a half after that, we were married. She's smart. Rachel works in IT security for a big firm in Austin, one of those glass-walled places with a kombucha bar and electric scooters in the hallway. I don't always understand what she does, but I know she's good at it. Sharp-minded, fast-talking, the kind of woman who walks into a room and makes everyone sit up straighter. I own a small boat motor repair business near Lake Travis. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills and then some. Some days it's outboards, other days it's trolling motors or the occasional custom setup for a retired guy with too much money and too much time. I work long hours, but I like the solitude. Machines don't lie. When something's wrong, it rattles, grinds, or stops. People? People are trickier. That Thursday, nothing felt particularly unusual, at least not until I came home. Rachel had told me she was heading to a girls' night with her coworkers, something she'd started doing more frequently in the past few months. Just wine and talking trash about our bosses, she'd said, laughing. I didn't think much of it. I mean, she works hard, she deserves a break. I was supposed to be working late. One of my regular clients had dropped off his base boat with a busted lower unit, and I'd promised I'd at least get the teardown started that night. But around 7:30, I realized I'd left a folder of inspection paperwork on the kitchen counter at home. I figured I'd run back, grab it, and head back to the shop. I didn't text her first. I didn't think I needed to. When I pulled up to the house, I remember thinking it looked unusually quiet. No lights on except the small lamp near the couch. No car in the driveway except mine. For a second, I wondered if Rachel had carpooled with someone. But the moment I walked inside, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. There were shoes by the door, men's sneakers, not mine. Newer, white soles, definitely not the kind of thing a girl grabs on accident. Next to them, a dark gray jacket was draped over the back of the dining chair. It looked expensive, like something out of a Nordstrom window. Not casual. Not forgotten. I stood there for a second, keys still in my hand, listening. At first, nothing. Then faintly, I heard voices. Muffled. Close. I couldn't make out the words, but I heard laughter, soft and low. It wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. The kind of laughter that carries weight even when whispered. I walked down the hallway, quiet on instinct, like I wasn't supposed to be there in my own home. Then I saw the door to our bedroom was ajar. Rachel came out of the bathroom in my robe. That's what hit me first, not her own robe, but mine. Her hair was damp like she just showered. Her cheeks were flushed. And then I saw him. A man stepped out of the bedroom behind her, buttoning his pants, belt loose in one hand. He froze when he saw me. Mid-step. Like a deer in headlights. I didn't recognize him. He wasn't someone I'd seen at any of her work events. He looked a few years younger than me, clean-shaven, short beard, stylish watch. Rachel's type, if I'm being honest, if I was ever blind to that before. It's not what it looks like, she blurted, her eyes wide. The man said nothing. Just stood there, half-dressed, looking between me and Rachel like he couldn't decide whether to explain or run. Finally, he did the latter. He mumbled, I didn't know, sorry, and slipped out the back door like he'd done it a dozen times before. And there we were. Just the two of us. Rachel crossed her arms, cinched the robe tighter, and looked at me like I was the one who had broken in. It's not what it looks like, she repeated. That was Brent. From work. He spilled coffee on himself and came over because we needed to talk about a firewall issue, something that couldn't wait. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My mouth felt like it was full of sawdust. She kept going. She said he had no change of clothes and that she offered him a towel in the guest bathroom. Said he changed into something dry from the laundry room, and I must have caught a weird moment. I wanted to laugh. I really did. Because the story was so flimsy it could have floated away. But here's the thing, she said it with absolute confidence. No guilt. No panic. Just this calm, assertive tone, like I was being irrational for jumping to conclusions. Like I had walked in on two people discussing JavaScript over chamomile tea and I was the one making it weird. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Tyler, she said, stepping closer, maybe you should learn to trust people instead of immediately assuming the worst. That sentence. That one line. It didn't just sting, it hollowed me out. Because I had trusted her. Completely. I never tracked her phone. Never asked questions when she started staying out late. Never thought twice when she bought new clothes or started hitting the gym more often. And now she was standing there in my robe asking me why I didn't trust her. I walked out the door without another word. I got in my truck and just drove. I ended up parked by the lake, windows down, staring at the black water. I thought about our wedding. Our honeymoon in Colorado. The time she got food poisoning at that roadside barbecue place and insisted on finishing her brisket anyway because it was too good to waste. All of it felt like someone else's memories. Like they didn't belong to the people we were anymore. I didn't go back that night. I slept in my truck, or tried to. Woke up every hour. Couldn't stop replaying it in my head, his shoes by the door, the way her hair was still damp, her tone when she said it was just Brent. The next morning I came home around 7. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Her car was parked where it always was. She had already left for work. The robe was gone. The jacket, the shoes disappeared like they were never there. But I knew what I saw. And even if I never got the truth, I knew something had shifted. That night didn't mark the start of anything. It marked the reveal. A hairline fracture in the glass showing me that it had been cracked for a long time. I just never looked closely enough to see it. I sat down on the couch and stared at the floor. My shop could wait. Everything could wait. Because from that moment on, everything was different. Not louder, not more dramatic. Just off. Like a house settling before it caves in. And I wasn't sure yet if I'd rebuild or walk away. After that night, nothing between Rachel and me exploded. There were no screaming matches, no public breakdowns, no hurling of accusations or plates. Just silence. Polite, practiced silence, the kind that seeps into the walls and makes you feel like a stranger in your own home. She didn't bring up what happened, and neither did I. Maybe she thought she got away with it. Maybe I let her think that on purpose. Because at that point, I wasn't sure what I needed more, answers or time to prepare myself for them. But from that day on, I noticed everything. Rachel hadn't changed that night, she had changed long before. I just hadn't seen it. Or maybe I had, but I'd mistaken it for stress or growth or whatever excuse husbands make to keep their world from falling apart. Now I was watching more closely and the details weren't lining up anymore. She used to leave her phone on the kitchen counter when she got home. Always face up, always chiming with some group chat or app notification. But after that night, it was always in her hand. Or in her purse. Always face down. Always on silent. If it buzzed while we were watching TV, she'd casually get up and step into the hallway work. If it buzzed while we were eating, she'd glance at it quickly, then tuck it away. Just group chat stuff, she'd say. But the names never appeared. Just that little preview banner lighting up and vanishing. And then there were the work hours. Rachel had always been consistent, out the door by 8:30, home by 6 o'clock. But over the last few months, her schedule grew flexible. Clients in different time zones, she'd tell me. Emergency deployments. Security breach escalation. The kind of phrases I didn't know enough to challenge. Fridays became a gamble. Sometimes she'd text around 5 o'clock saying she'd be late, grab dinner without me. Other times she'd get home at 9, hair perfect, makeup too fresh for someone who'd been staring at a screen all day. Once she came home wearing a new perfume, something darker, muskier than the scent she used when we were dating. The kind of perfume worn for effect, not comfort. When I asked about it, she smiled. "Oh, it's new. Do you like it?" I didn't answer. She didn't press. She started buying lingerie again too. Not that she paraded it around or anything. But I saw the tags in the trash. Victoria's Secret bags tucked beneath the sink. Stuff we used to shop for together, now arriving without a word. Stuff I never saw her wear for me. I tried to brush it off. I really did. Told myself that people grow. That maybe she just wanted to feel good about herself. That maybe I was being paranoid. But the mosaic kept building tile by tile, detail by detail, and it was getting harder to pretend it wasn't forming a picture I didn't want to see. One Saturday morning, I was fixing the porch railing when I noticed her talking on the phone in the backyard. She was pacing, her voice soft, her laugh easy. She didn't know I could hear her through the kitchen window. She said something about next time and keeping it low-key. Then, "You're such a dork." That was new. That was not how she talked to coworkers. I stepped outside, clanging my tool belt just loud enough to signal I was near. She looked up, startled, and immediately ended the call with a hurried, "I'll text you later." I didn't ask. She didn't offer. But her whole vibe shifted. Her body tensed. Her smile, the one she had just used, vanished. Another night, I got up to grab water around 2 a.m. She was in bed beside me, turned away, breathing slow and steady. I reached for my phone but noticed hers glowing on the nightstand. Normally locked. But this time it was open. Maybe she forgot, maybe she trusted I wouldn't look. I did. Notifications were muted, but one popped up anyway, a message from someone saved under the name Brenda Work. It said, "Last night was worth the risk." I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I just sat there in the glow of the screen, reading that one sentence again and again, like it was the answer to a question I hadn't dared ask. Then came the moment that made it all undeniable. We were driving home from her parents' house, a quiet Sunday afternoon, windows down, country music playing low. She fell asleep with her head tilted back. I glanced over, then noticed her smartwatch light up. I almost didn't look. Almost gave her that last shred of benefit. But I did. The screen read, "Brent, can't stop thinking about last night." I didn't wake her. I didn't slam the brakes or demand she explain. I just stared at her face, peaceful, relaxed, and felt like I was looking at a stranger wearing my wife's skin. I watched her sleep, wondering how many nights she had stayed out late claiming to be with friends, only to end up in someone else's bed, or heart, or arms. I didn't sleep that night either. The next morning, I Googled Brent plus Rachel plus LinkedIn. Found him in less than 2 minutes. Brent, mid-30s. Software engineer at her company. Lives downtown. Smug smile in his profile pic like he's never heard the word consequences. I stared at his face longer than I care to admit. Imagined his voice. Tried to figure out what it was about him that drew her in. Was it just the novelty? Was it something I lost? Something I never had? I didn't confront her. I didn't even hint. I just started watching more carefully. I volunteered to drop her off at an office party one evening, something I hadn't done in a while. She hesitated. Said she could Uber. Said she didn't want to make me drive all the way out there. I insisted. Just wanted to see who'd meet her outside. She snapped. Not loud, but sharp. "What, are you ashamed to be seen with me or something?" I laughed, caught off guard. "What? You always act weird when it comes to my work stuff. You never want to come, and when you do, you sulk. Just forget it." She called an Uber. As she walked out the door, she said, "I'll be late. Don't wait up." I nodded and she left. And I stood there, staring at the closed door, wondering when I had stopped being part of her life and started becoming an obstacle in it. About 2 weeks after that last fight, the one about the party she didn't want me anywhere near, Rachel told me she had a closed corporate event coming up. Some company mixer up at Revel Tower, one of those new rooftop lounge complexes that screams money. She casually mentioned it over dinner, chewing on a bite of salmon like it was just another Wednesday detail. I asked if spouses were invited. She didn't even look up. No. Just internal people. One of those HR bonding things. She went right back to her food. That should have been the end of it. A regular husband might have nodded and moved on. But I wasn't a regular husband anymore, not since I saw Brent's name light up her watch like some dirty little neon sign. So I made other plans. An old buddy of mine, Kyle, used to work events, catering, setup, sometimes security. I called him up and asked if he had any connections still working the corporate scene. "Got a friend doing vendor logistics at Revel Tower this week," he said. "Why?" I told him I wanted to show up at a party I wasn't invited to. Kyle didn't ask questions. He just laughed and said, "You're either brave or stupid. Maybe both." The day of the event, I put on a delivery polo, jeans, and sneakers. Kyle had given me a badge, nothing official, just something that read Cal, Cafe Service Partner, in a basic font. I printed it, laminated it, and clipped it to my shirt. Tossed an empty thermal coffee case in the back seat. Wiped my palms on my jeans, and drove straight to the tower. My stomach was a blender of nerves and fury the entire way. I got through the lobby without a problem. Acted like I belonged, smiled at the front desk girl, and followed the signs for vendors. 2 elevators and a service hallway later, I was on the 27th floor, where the party was being held. It was slick. LED lights pulsing under frosted panels. Music floating down from a live DJ up on a glass-paneled balcony. Bartenders shook cocktails behind marble counters. A mobile photo booth near the entrance kept flashing as couples leaned in with goofy props. Everyone was dressed to impress. Jacket sleeves pushed to the forearms, sleek dresses, high heels, big grins. I stuck to the edges, pretending to look for the right drop-off location for my coffee gear. I scanned the room one section at a time, careful not to linger too long in any one spot. And then I saw her. Rachel. She was sitting at the rooftop bar, laughing. Her hair curled just enough, lipstick darker than usual. She wore a slim, black wrap dress, one I'd never seen before, and a thin gold necklace I'd given her for our 3rd anniversary. The one I hadn't seen her wear in over a year. And next to her, too close for casual, was Brent. He leaned in as she laughed at something he said, and his hand was on her lower back. Not a brief touch, a claim, a signal. She didn't pull away. Then she tilted her head toward him, whispered something near his ear. He smiled. She smiled. And then she kissed him. It wasn't hurried, wasn't secretive. It was the kind of kiss that says, we've done this before. We'll do it again. We belong to this moment. Couldn't breathe. I pulled my phone out and hit record. 14 seconds of footage. Her hand on his arm. His fingers on her waist. The kiss. I backed away behind a marble column and slid down until I was sitting on the floor. My legs had gone numb. Not from the crouch, from reality. Because no matter how much you suspect something, no matter how many signs slap you across the face, seeing it, that's when your stomach actually caves in. I don't know how long I sat there. At some point, a caterer walked by and nodded at me. I nodded back like I was one of them. Then I saw Rachel and Brent get up from the bar. They clinked their wine glasses in a mock toast and walked toward the balcony doors that led to the rooftop garden. I followed. Not up close. Just enough to see them disappear outside, into the night air and fairy lights. I didn't chase them. I didn't want to know what happened up there. What was the point? I already knew what I needed to know. Everything after that was just detail. I sat on a hallway bench outside the event floor, the party noise muffled behind glass. I stared at the still frame of my paused video, finger hovering over the screen, replaying it again and again like a slow death. I don't remember walking back to the parking garage. I don't remember driving home. All I remember is pulling into the driveway around midnight and sitting in the dark for nearly an hour. I didn't go inside. I just sat there, both hands on the wheel, breathing like I had to remind myself to keep doing it. The lights inside were off. Her car wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. I unlocked my phone, saved the video, backed it up twice, once to a private album, once to an encrypted cloud folder. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet, but I knew it had to be saved. This wasn't paranoia anymore. Wasn't suspicion. This was evidence. And somewhere deep inside me, a quiet voice started whispering something I hadn't allowed myself to say until that moment. It's over. I didn't sleep that night either. 3 in a row by then. I lay on the couch in the den, eyes open, watching the ceiling fan spin in slow motion. Every thought was a rewind button. Every blink was another flash of the kiss. Her dress, her smile, his hand on her. At 4:17 a.m., she texted, "Staying at Jess's. Weather turned bad and had a little too much wine. Love you." I stared at that message until the phone screen dimmed itself. And I finally understood what betrayal really looks like. Not just the act, but the cover-up. The audacity. The gall to kiss another man and then send love you to the husband waiting at home. The worst part? She probably thought I'd never know. Rachel came home the next morning like nothing had happened. It was just after 9 a.m. I was sitting at the kitchen table, still in yesterday's clothes, a mug of cold coffee in front of me. The garage door hummed open, her car pulled in, and a minute later, the door clicked and she walked inside. Heels in one hand, a plastic-to-go coffee cup in the other. She paused when she saw me, just for a second. A flicker of something, guilt maybe, but it vanished behind a yawn. "Hey," she said, like she was surprised to find me awake. "Didn't think you'd be up." I said nothing. She gave a tight smile and crossed to the fridge. Jess and I ended up binge-watching Love is Blind. Totally lost track of time. Then it started pouring, so I crashed at her place. "Hope you didn't worry." Still, I didn't say a word. She turned to face me, took a sip of coffee. "You okay?" I just nodded, then stood and walked past her without making eye contact. Upstairs, I closed the bedroom door and sat on the edge of the bed. My heartbeat wasn't racing anymore. It had settled into something worse, cold, flat, measured. That was the day I stopped reacting. Not because I was numb, but because the theater was over. I'd seen the show. Now I was just behind the curtain, watching the actors continue a scene that no longer made sense. I didn't go to work that day. I didn't touch the boat in the garage or return any messages. Instead, I spent hours on my laptop organizing the video, creating backup folders, converting the footage to multiple formats. I took *TS frames of the kiss, of the hand on her waist, of the wine glasses clinking. I zoomed in. I cropped. I labeled them by time and location. It wasn't revenge. It was documentation. Evidence in case my heart ever tried to rewrite the story. That night, Rachel made dinner, some pasta she saw on Instagram with garlic bread and a glass of wine for me too. She didn't usually cook on weeknights anymore. Said she was too tired. But that night she did. She hummed while chopping herbs. Acted like things were fine. I chewed and nodded like a man taking inventory at a crime scene. Long day? She asked, leaning her chin on her hand. Yeah, I said. Did some catching up? She smiled and reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. I missed you last night. My stomach turned. But I smiled back. It was the strangest thing, playing calm. Pretending. But I needed her to keep pretending too. I needed her to feel secure. Because truth is, I wasn't ready to blow it up just yet. I was still assembling my own case, not for a courtroom, but for peace of mind. I didn't want arguments. I wanted clarity. Over the next few days, I became a quiet collector of clues. Rachel had changed her phone passcode sometime in the last month. I noticed when I saw her unlock it with a quick flick of her thumb. For digits, but no more birthdays. I didn't ask why. Just filed it away. She kept getting texts at odd hours. I'd wake up at 1 o'clock or 2 a.m. to the faint buzz of her phone lighting up the room. Sometimes she'd check it. Sometimes she wouldn't. But every time she'd shift in bed and curl a little tighter into herself, like the messages came with weight. I stopped sleeping next to her. At first, I told her it was the old shoulder injury flaring up again, needed the extra space to stretch out. She said she understood, gave me a peck on the cheek and turned over. No argument. No sadness. Just accommodation. Eventually, I moved into the guest room entirely. She never came in to ask why. One afternoon, when she said she'd be working late, I checked her laptop. Not her work one that had a fingerprint scanner, but the personal one, the one she used for emails and social media. She left it open, logged in, probably confident I wouldn't care. And she was right, past Tyler wouldn't have. I found nothing obvious. Her email was mostly newsletters and online receipts. Instagram had no messages, no suspicious follows. Facebook was inactive. But her browser history? That told a story. There were searches for hotels near her office. Dinner reservation confirmations for 2. A few random articles like how to tell if your marriage is in trouble and what to expect from couples therapy. And buried between those, one Google search I stared at for a long time. Can you love 2 people at once? I closed the laptop. Didn't confront. Didn't cry. Just added that question to the list of things she wouldn't dare ask out loud. Later that week, I did something that felt surreal. I called a lawyer. Young guy. Looked barely 30 but sharp. Wore a wedding ring too. I sat across from him in a downtown office that smelled like pine cleaner and old paper. He asked what brought me in. I told him I think my wife's cheating. And I don't want to be stupid about it. He didn't blink. Just nodded. You're not here just to vent. You're here to act. I nodded. He asked about assets, shared property, prenuptials. I gave him the basics. He handed me a checklist, documents to gather, steps to take. Told me not to move out of the house. Told me not to mention divorce until I was ready to file. I shook his hand and walked out feeling like I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Back home, Rachel was watching a true crime documentary on the couch, blanket over her legs, wine glass half full. She patted the seat next to her. I sat on the armchair instead. She smiled like it didn't matter. The next morning, I sold my old boat. The first one I ever fixed up, the one I kept meaning to refurbish for weekend trips that never came. I took the cash and opened a separate deposit account. Quietly. Carefully. I changed my SIM card the next day. Kept my number but rerouted everything through a cloud backup she couldn't access. Changed my passwords. Closed our shared Spotify account. Even little things like that started to feel personal, like I was peeling my identity out of the shared space we'd built. It felt like preparing for a hurricane even though the sun was still shining. Rachel kept doing her theater routine. Leaving sticky notes that said love you or date night soon on the bathroom mirror. Offering to make pancakes on Sundays. Sitting close and pretending to stretch when I passed the couch. But I was done. I was just waiting now for the right day, the right hour, the right final snap to push the whole structure down. Because the truth was clear. She had already left this marriage. She just hadn't packed. A week later, Rachel came home with pizza and a movie rental code like it was 2017 again. She waltzed through the front door around 7 wearing leggings and one of those oversized hoodies she used to steal from me. Her hair was in a messy bun. No makeup. Looked cozy. Harmless. Almost like she remembered what us used to look like and was trying to play dress up with the idea. She held the pizza box up like it was a peace offering. "Truce night," she said cheerfully. "No work talk. No weird vibes. Just carbs and crap TV." I stared at her for a second, trying to read past the act. I almost admired her commitment to the bit. The way she could just drop back into this version of herself, sweet, laid-back Rachel, like she wasn't the same woman who'd kissed another man on a rooftop while texting me "love you" a few hours later. She set the pizza on the coffee table and flopped onto the couch, patting the cushion beside her. "Let's just forget everything tonight," she said, already reaching for the remote. I didn't sit. Instead, I walked to the kitchen drawer and pulled out a manila folder. Set it on the coffee table, right next to the pizza box. Rachel's hand froze on the remote. She looked down at the folder like it had crawled out of the woodwork. "What's this?" "Open it." She hesitated. For the first time in weeks, I saw something real on her face. Not performance. Not control. Just that flicker of dread that shows up when someone realizes they're no longer ahead. She flipped it open. Inside, a printout of her company's behavioral conduct clause, the rooftop photos, Brent's hand on her hip, the kiss, the wine glasses, and a screen capture of the smartwatch message, "Can't stop thinking about last night." On top of all that, I tucked a copy of her employee contract. Highlighted the paragraph about mate fraternization between team members and its consequences for senior staff. She stared at the contents like she couldn't decide whether to laugh, cry, or scream. "You set this all up?" she asked, voice low. Different from before. This was the voice she used in meetings, measured, slightly dangerous. "No," I said. "You did. I just hit record." She blinked. Her throat moved like she swallowed something bitter. She started to say something, but I cut her off. "I know about Brent. I know about the nights you didn't sleep at Jess's. I know about the team dinners and the fake perfume stories and the hotel reservations you made from your personal email. And I know more than anything that you didn't think I'd ever look closely enough to find the cracks." She stood slowly, not reaching for the folder. "Tyler," she started. "I'm not asking you to explain," I said, backing away a step. "I'm not even angry anymore. I'm done playing dumb. Done playing nice." She went quiet. Then, like clockwork, the script kicked in. "I messed up," she said, voice softer now. "I know I did. But I never meant to hurt you. It wasn't supposed to be anything serious. I didn't think it would go that far." I almost smiled. She still didn't understand. It wasn't the depth of the betrayal. It was the denial. The ease. The fake smiles. The sticky notes that said "love you" written with the same hand that typed last night was worth the risk. I didn't say anything. I just stood there and watched as she sank into the couch like her legs couldn't hold her up anymore. "I'll stop seeing him," she said finally. "I'll fix this. We can fix this." "We're not fixing anything," I replied. "We're finishing it. Cleanly." She blinked at me. "So that's it? You made the call," I said. "You just didn't realize the line was still open." She opened her mouth, then shut it. Her fingers traced the edge of the folder like she wanted to tear it or maybe throw it, but her hands were too still. Too cold. I walked upstairs. Left her sitting there with the pizza and the paperwork. That night, I didn't sleep in the guest room. I locked the door to the master bedroom and set my phone to do not disturb. She didn't knock. She didn't come in. But she started to understand that she wasn't the only one who could move silently. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. Quietly packed my overnight bag, took the boat keys, and left the house without saying a word. Drove to the lake and just sat on the dock watching the sky go from charcoal to gold. It was the first time I felt air in my lungs in weeks. When I came home around noon, Rachel was in the kitchen, dressed for work, mug in hand. She didn't say anything as I walked past her. Didn't smile. Didn't reach for me. Just looked at me like I was already gone. And maybe I was. Because something inside had shifted. Not out of rage. Not out of heartbreak. But from the quiet power of someone who finally stopped waiting for their partner to choose them and started choosing themselves.